Hi, everybody. Welcome to another Good Gut Live. We're always excited to be here. We love doing these lives. It's just a fun way to connect with all of you, to be a part of something just educational. We have so much going on, and this is really our number one topic to speak on. For those that maybe don't know, my name is James Marin. I'm an integrative registered dietitian, environmental nutritionist, one of the co-founders of Married to Health.
I'm Delia Marin. I'm an integrative dietitian, certified gastrointestinal nutritionist, one of the co-founders also of Married to Health, which is an integrative practice of dietitian nutritionists. So we're here to help you and your fam heal with each meal. That is our mission every single day. And certainly when it comes to SIBO IBS, at least that's my specialty. That's my bread and butter. We do have 8 dietitians total in our practice, and not everybody talks about the gut. Some of our dietitians talk about cancer, some kids, some metabolic disease, but I'm all about the gut. So whether you are somebody with Irritable Bowel Syndrome, IBS, inflammatory bowel disease, IBD, celiac disease, autoimmune disease, which certainly overlaps with the gut, we're all about it.
All about it.
Yes.
And that's why, but even if you've been following us long enough, you'll realize even our very gut-focused content speaks to you, because diabetes is related to the gut, cancer is related to the gut, autoimmune disease is related to the gut. So if we're talking about something on the gut, and you're like, I don't have gut issues, rethink that a little bit, because chances are you do and don't notice it. There's more context there. But this topic especially is, we've been talking about this for a while. And hey, Chris, what's up? I'm seeing the hello. And again, the benefit of watching Good Gut Live, if you're likely maybe listening to this or watching this later on Good Gut Live podcast, great. But if you can catch this Fridays live, you get to ask questions and we get to say hi to you. What's up, Chris? So we're seeing your guys' comments and questions down below. So if you want to post those, go for it. We're always welcome to answer, and we love answering your questions. So, but the topic today is, if you've been with us for a while, we are all about plants helping IBS and SIBO, and that has been counter the narrative for a while, because so many out there are going, plants are terrible for the gut, and so many SIBO, IBS, even like IBD, so we're getting like Crohn's and colitis, tell you eat less fiber, don't eat plants. So we've been talking about this for a while.
Yeah. And we get it. We get why they say that.
We get it. And so that's what we want to dive into today. So we're gonna just reiterate, maybe give updates, give some of the latest and greatest of what's going on in our practice, what we're seeing in research, answer questions, and just get into it, because we are all about plants truly helping you get to the root of what's going on. Plants truly helping to repair tight junctions, repair your mucosa, help with what we talk about, population, function, and structure of the gut. Those 3 main areas. Everything kind of points to plants helping with all those, plants truly being the root to repairing a lot of those things that we're seeing that are in need of repair. So we're excited to get into this. This is our jam.
Because we like talking about that, right? James calls it the population, function, and whatever else. Structure. He's fancy words. I like to say the balance of the bugs,
right.
The flow of the bugs in the gut, the barrier or the house for the bugs.
Yep.
We do know, and there's so much data that confirms that plants are essential to all 3 of those main portions of the gut functioning extremely thoroughly. And again, you may yourself have experienced, when I eat fewer plants, my symptoms are better. Therefore, plants cause everything that I have going on. Or you may have a cousin or a coworker or someone who's like, yes, I went keto, I went carnivore, and my bloating stopped, and my gas stopped, and my diarrhea stopped. It seems like a solution to cut out the plants. But what we like to say are, plants are kind of just revealing what's there, right? Plants are not going to cause those symptoms. Plants will just perhaps feed the bugs that are causing those symptoms. So just like your body prefers those plants for fuel when it can break them down and digest them in a healthy way and in a streamlined way, if everything is in balance, your bugs like the same thing. So they want to feel great. They want to stay strong. They don't want to leave you, whether they're bugs that belong there and they're in the right balance there, or they don't belong there and they're in the wrong balance in your body.
Yes.
These bugs like the plants as well. So, we've talked about gut debt, and, James can kind of speak to that analogy further, but really that's what happens when someone says, I feel better without plants. And,
Right.
James, you can kind of explain what gut debt is and how people get in that gut debt that we kind of talk about.
Yeah, so the story of this is really we see and we help our patients understand that a lot of times this could have happened way before you were even born, right? We get into your
Mhm.
great grandma, your grandma, your mom, they're already racking up the debt for you. And it's true like in actual debt, like finances, right? We can come from families where, oh wow, I have this trust fund and we have all these properties and I'm well taken care of, and you're born into this wealthy family. Great. uh, Many of us are not, right? And so it can also be true for health, where maybe you are born into a financially wealthy family, but maybe not a healthy family, even, right? With actual physical health,
Microbial.
microbial wealth in a
Microbial
way,
wealth.
right? But so in this analogy, it works really well because in the same way you can be born into a family where you don't have a trust fund and you don't have that wealth, the same can be true for your microbial and gut health, where your grandma and your mom have been hard at work, really kind of destroying their inner ecosystem, their gut microbiome, these healthy bugs that make us who we are and keep us healthy and strong. And so what we call that is transgenerational effects. This can be then passed on to you in utero, in birth, right? In your birth, in your birthday, happy birthday, here's your gift. IBS, right? We see this in studies where
Mm.
mothers can pass along a microbiome that is more prone to IBS, to Crohn's, to colitis, to even
Celiac
just,
disease.
even we're seeing metabolic issues, right? So across the board disease. And so you're already starting off in debt. But then our life, I had a life that was making me in microbial debt and gut debt, which was hyper processed food and a sedentary lifestyle and family trauma and all these things that just rack on the debt. And then we go on TikTok and social media and it's like broccoli's bad, cabbage is bad. And it's like, well, given the context of this gut debt, yeah, these healthy foods that maybe you haven't been eating, or these fermented foods that you've never really eaten in the modern age of our society, you're like, oh, those hurt my stomach. Well, it's because you have this debt. And so the analogy of actual debt is what a lot of people tend to do when they have a lot of debt is they start getting letters in the mail and emails and phone calls like, hey, pay your debt. And that's what your symptoms are. The stomach aches and the diarrhea and the constipation is like your body going, hey, pay your bills. You have debt. Get this taken care of. What we like to do is go, let's just rip up the letters. Let's change our phone number. Let's move even if we have to, right? To avoid these calls that these symptoms are going, hey, help me, help me, help me, pay me, pay me, pay me. No, no, no. Let's avoid that. So you may go to a doctor, you may go to a nutritionist, you may follow someone online who's saying, hey, just rip up those bills, problem solved. Change your phone number, problem solved. Change your email, problem solved. The problem is not solved. It looks like it's solved. You get some peace, like Dahlia said initially, where you go keto or carnivore and you go, oh, my stomach feels better. My abs are showing. I feel so much healthier. And so you get a little bit of that peace. But the further you go down the line, you start to realize, oh, you know what? Something else is going on. Or whether you develop eczema or your cholesterol's through the roof, or you start to get heart palpitations, and the list can go on, right? And you start to go, wait a minute, okay, this piece that I thought I had, in the analogy, right? You go to buy a car, or one of your kids needs to go to college and you go to take out a loan. Oh, my credit score is negative 50, right? Like, oops, this piece I thought I had was a farce. It really wasn't there. We didn't get to the root. So we're saying, get to the root. How do you do that? In the analogy of gut debt and debt, right? You come up with a healthy plan. You look at a budget, and it's to say this money and these microbes and these foods, they're not bad. It's just using them in the proper context. It's budgeting them well. It's not saying, okay, fermented foods are great, eat 50 pounds of them a day. No, it's starting with 1 teaspoon if you need to a day, and understanding the context to work your way back up and what's going on. And then you can kind of go from there and succeed. So
And sometimes it's not even necessarily starting with the food.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to start with managing the bugs. If you have severe overabundance and overgrowth of a certain type of bug, sometimes you really struggle to grow with your food.
Totally.
So, for example, if you have a significant fungal overgrowth or yeast overgrowth
Hmm.
from something like just recurrent antibiotic use, or maybe you took steroids, and research and studies do show that that encourages the growth of yeast and fungi.
Hmm.
Perhaps you have been exposed to mold and you've had mycotoxin illness. It's hard to grow. Maybe you say, every time I try to add those fermented foods,
Yeah.
every time I try to add anything that has yeast or mushrooms or nutritional yeast, it really, really causes me discomfort. Sometimes you're not going to grow from there. You really do need to manage the bugs before you can add the food sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, so it's the solution isn't let's just cut it all out forever and ever and ever, and then that's going to starve out the bugs. I
Yeah.
rarely see that that works either, because you have practitioners out there who are like, go on a candida diet, don't eat any carbs at all, don't eat fruit, don't eat grains, don't eat anything, they'll just die. Guess what? The healthy bugs who also keep yeast and fungi in check will also die. So you'll have
Right.
a really hard time eating or restricting your way out of that dysbiosis. Sometimes you do need, whether it's a prescription antifungal, an herbal antifungal, you do need something sometimes to help manage that. So
Hmm.
that's really important to understand, where am I with these symptoms, where they are today? Do I start with the food? Do I start with managing the bugs? Do I need to start with my motility?
Hmm.
Maybe I'm extremely constipated. And so, no matter what food I'm trying to eat or what herb I'm trying to put in, nothing's happening because I'm so constipated. That's where you need to start. So, you need to assess, which of those main parts of a well functioning gut do I need to start with? Is it
So,
the balance? Is it the flow? Or is it the structure?
so to clarify, what you're not saying to do is start with eliminating all grains, eliminate all cruciferous vegetable, eliminate all legumes. You're not saying to do that. That's not where
I'm
you
not
start.
saying that.
Just to
Yes.
clarify, because that's what happens with so many people. They start
Mhm.
with this massive elimination. And
Because that seems very controlled. And I get it, right? You might notice, like, hey, every time I eat this, I have discomfort. And maybe that is part of it. If somebody has a food
right.
allergy or a strong food intolerance, maybe that's part of getting you out of that gut debt. But if you're confused, if you're overwhelmed, it's so important to reach out for guidance and to reach out to somebody who really can help you figure out that first step to take. So that way you're not just restricting more and more and more and more. And then you're like, I don't get it. I really thought that this cutback plan was my way out of gut debt. But I almost feel more in debt now, because not only am I not eating the foods, I don't think I ever can again. So
Hmm.
it's so important to work with a gut financial manager.
Gut financial, yeah. And it's funny, I made this, I want to show you guys on our threads. I made this kind of parallel to gut debt in a way where, like, in the gut, sorry, in the gut, we call too much of one microbe an overgrowth, but in food, too much of one ingredient is called like school lunch pudding, standard American diet, right? Like, so like sugar,
Mm.
we kind of have this overwhelming amount of bacteria or fungus or whatever, and it's an issue in our food system to like yummy, right? And so it's this idea of really getting to and working on that overgrowth, right? We don't want too much of one thing. Sugar's good in the context of a whole food apple, and there's carbohydrates and sugar in food. Fat is good in the contents of walnut and flaxseed and cashews and things like that.
And if you
um,
have a well balanced gut, you could even handle a little bit more of that processed sugar,
Correct.
processed fat.
You said the key, well
Mhm.
balanced, right? So it's about that well balanced gut. We call that eubiosis, not dysbiosis. So almost we can get to the fact of, and we talk about this a lot. So make sure you're subscribed, marriedhealth.com. Get on our, you can click contact, you can click our newsletter, because we send out information about our top test as well. So it's
Mm.
understanding, do you have this overgrowth? Do you have too much of a certain microbe? What is going on? And we're not just talking about stool testing. We're not just talking about food sensitivity testing, because that can get a little tricky. That can get confusing and maybe can even lead you in the wrong direction. we're talking about testing that is more tailored to you. It could be something like a breath test. It could be something just more tailored. It can even be basic labs if you haven't gotten them done, but understanding a little bit better what's going on and being conservative with testing so you're getting the best results from that and not feeling too overwhelmed. So that's important to know, okay, what do I have too much of? That is a good question to ask. And understanding, okay, I do have an overgrowth of bacteria. What does that mean, and how do I take care of it? Because, man, if you are doing it on your own, we've been doing this a while. It is extremely overwhelming. We understand that. We know that.
I've lived that.
Totally.
Yes, absolutely. Or maybe you are working with a care team who has limitations, and they're like, all right, we did your labs, we scoped you, nothing structurally looked off, so you're fine. So maybe
Yeah.
then it's looking for somebody who can add a little bit more to that and maybe
Right.
take a little bit more of an integrative approach or assess you through an integrative lens and kind of understand, okay, where did some of that spending go off the rails? When did you really, really start veering towards debt? And then how can we get you on the other side of it? How can we be on the up and up with what you have going on in your gut? So that's where it can be so important. Again, you yourself write out your gut health story and, make sure that you're subscribed to our newsletter. This is something we're going to have available soon on our website as your gut health story journal. So if you're like, I'm not ready to work with somebody, but I do want to cohesively write out kind of my gut health story, we have resources like that available. So that way you're kind of even just assessing like where did things go haywire, so I can really have somebody target in and really help me identify where in my story I really started to need a little bit of help. Because yes, restricting your diet more and more can seem like the answer, but soon enough you're going to find that that's causing more issues, right? If after a long period of restriction of fermented foods and calcium fortified foods, maybe you're calcium deficient and then you start developing osteopenia or osteoporosis. Maybe after a long period of low FODMAP, you have low levels of bifidobacteria, as the data shows. Prolonged low FODMAP diet can decrease one of your most important commensal bugs, bifidobacteria, which support reducing inflammation and motility and so many other things. Maybe you are restricting those sulfury foods for months and months and months on end. And then that starts affecting your liver because you need those sulfury foods to make your master antioxidant, glutathione. So it can seem like a solution, but restricting is seldom a long-term viable plan.
We can't wait any longer for our symptoms to just get better with medication. We can't wait any longer for our kids to just be healthier. We can't wait any longer for our soil and environment to be cleaner. We can't wait any longer for our food to actually give us the health we are looking for. What we need to do is come together. What we need to do is reconnect with our health, reconnect with each other, reconnect with our microbes, reconnect with our food, and reconnect with where our food comes from. That is why we want you to join us at the Regenerative Nutrition and Gut Health Experience, where you're getting the how-to, the what now of what to do to become healthier, to connect to these important topics, to connect with one another, and to truly learn from experts who are in the field, who are working with patients on a day-to-day basis on what actually works to become healthier, to heal, to connect with your gut microbiome, and to truly heal with each meal. See you there. And so it sounds like what you're saying, Dahlia, then is restricting these plant foods essentially blocks what you need. Or why. Let's get into that, because I want to touch on that a little bit more in depth. Like, why is restricting plant foods not a good idea? You touched on some there where it's like, okay, so it decreases species of microbes that are helpful. It decreases
To the
nutrients,
balance.
right? And in that your body can get, whether it's for your liver or your pancreas or other organ systems, right? So it's like, why is that? Well, you're losing out, right? There's a net positive to eating plants. And when you eliminate too many of them, you're missing out, right? And I would say a big one, which is really cool to point to. I want to show you guys this. And for those just listening, I'm showing a graphic from a really cool study done. The study is on a dietary fiber deprived gut microbiota degrades the colonic mucus barrier and enhances pathogen susceptibility. So long story short, what this does, and I want to, oh no, I missed it. Okay. Here we go. For those of us listening, we're looking at a graphic of essentially mucosal layer. Like it's a cartoon graphic, and you have this layer of mucus in your colon that protects your mucus. And so when you are not eating enough fiber, that layer of mucus is becoming slowly degraded. It's being eaten away. So when you're not eating enough fiber, and studies like this is a really well done study, there's other studies to show this in many different ways, but essentially when you're not eating enough fiber from plant foods, the pathogenic microbes increase, and they like to eat the mucus. They like to eat your cells. They're almost carnivorous in some ways, in some aspects, but essentially, if you're not giving them the substrate they need to eat, if you're not feeding them, they're going to eat you. And you start to, over time, have a weaker mucosal layer. It then opens you up to your actual cells being degraded, and you get this leakiness. This is really one of the biggest pathways to this gut hyperpermeability, or what we call leaky gut. So that in and of itself is a massive reason to eat your plants, right? That is like eating plants or avoiding plants is not a long-term solution. Avoiding plants is not the way to go. Again, it may feel good, but long-term, you are doing damage that you're not really going to feel right away. You're not going to feel these microbes eating your mucosal layer at first, right? We're not going to be like, ow, my mucosal layer. No, we don't feel that. But given enough time, and that's where we see a lot of these people on diets that aren't sustainable. It's about 6 months, some 3 months, some can last years. And again, don't believe everything you hear online where you think someone, well, they've been doing this for 10 years. Like, have they really? And that's where you're seeing a lot of these people who are on, let's say, a no carb or like a no vegetable diet. They are adding back, oh, I'm adding some fruit, I'm adding some honey now, they're adding these fibers and carbohydrates back in because they're feeling it. They actually feel like, okay, I actually need these things because what's happening is not sustainable. What's happening is not the way I want to go. So very, very important. So those are some of the reasons why.
So that tells us that plants are essential to not only the balance of the bugs, but the barrier, the home of the bugs as well. And then certainly it's known that fiber helps with that flow of the bugs. So if someone's constipated, they very likely aren't getting enough fiber. Sometimes diarrhea is caused by not getting in enough fiber. When there's slow motility, the colon kind of just will pull in water to wash everything out. So that balance of fiber is so important. And that balance of types of fiber too, right? You have that broom type of insoluble fiber that pushes things through. Then you have that mop type of soluble fiber that kind of drinks up water, hydrating the stool. So fiber is the key. Again, if there are 3 major functioning portions of the gut and fiber is key for all of them, cutting out fiber or types of fiber, whether it's fermentable FODMAPs, fermentable sulfur, histamines, it's not a long-term solution. We really need to identify where in these different areas of the gut did things go awry. Did somebody have an accident or a surgery or something that impeded their motility? Maybe they have significant scar tissue in their intestinal lining, or they have an upper cervical spine injury, and that's affected motility. We need to maybe then change the amount of fiber or type of fiber, but we don't want to cut it out. If somebody's maybe missing a portion of their small or large intestine, again, maybe we need to change how much fiber or give tools to digest the fiber better, like specific enzymes, but we don't want to cut it out. So it's so important to know helping to manage these things can be really key. And I love what Judy is saying here. She said, since I haven't been using as much fruit and very little beans and legumes and less fiber overall, I have been able to tolerate FODMAPs better than previously, such as fructans and wheat products and some others. Hopefully my gut is healing with the help of the supplements that Dahlia recommended. I had a couple cheat snacks that are not necessarily vegan. We're definitely a source of gluten-containing fructans. I'm trying another whole food day today again with half an apple that I previously could not tolerate. So yeah, Judy is being really selective in, okay, this might be a necessary medical nutrition therapy at this time.
Mhm.
And it's helping her tolerate more foods. But if Judy was saying, I've been doing this, which some people do. They come to us and they're like, my gastro put me on a low FODMAP diet. I researched myself a low FODMAP diet, but the diet alone, the restrictive diet alone, is not helping me tolerate more foods. So Judy's using it in a very selective way where she's finding actually now she is tolerating wheat better. She's tolerating this half an apple better where she couldn't before. So for that instance, yes, a temporary elimination, that medical nutrition therapy is so important. These things are not meant to be long term and they are not meant to be forever. Again, unless somebody has an allergy, a strong intolerance, and they really can't use tools like enzymes or other things to retolerate these foods. Like somebody with celiac, no matter how many digestive enzymes they take, they are not going to tolerate gluten. They have an autoimmune condition in which they cannot eat gluten. That is when it makes sense, but not for IBS, not for IBD, not for other conditions that you need some type of temporary dietary change. But really, you just need a gut financial planner to help you understand where things went awry.
Totally. And so it sounds like you're saying, yeah, I mean, that's some of the, because we get that question a lot and we hear this from a lot of you and we see this online of like, well, I'm trying to eat plants, but I can't, or I'm running into these, that's the age-old question. I'm trying to eat plants. I know I should eat plants, but I can't. And so it is that kind of don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's like, okay, you can do low FODMAP, but that doesn't mean you have to eliminate all of the FODMAP rich
It's not no
foods.
FODMAP,
It's
it's
not
low
no
FODMAP.
FODMAP, it's low FODMAP, and then having that plan. So like Dahlia was getting into, so that really does answer that question.
Mhm.
And then
And then you're graduating. You're going to moderate
right.
FODMAP. Then hopefully you're going to balanced FODMAP. Then you're going to high FODMAP. And if you've been working on those parts of your gut all the while, hopefully then you eat the high FODMAPs with no problem.
And then another question though, but plants are inherently bad. They have oxalates and they have
Lectin.
sulfur and they have yeah, lectins and salicylate. Like they're bad. What are you talking about? We shouldn't be eating them. That's another comment or a
Yeah.
question out there. Like,
And, that I would say everything can be true within context. And maybe that's true if you're an animal who's eating raw cashews off of a tree. It's going to cause you GI discomfort, right? If you're eating 2 pounds of raw cashew, that's not how we eat certain things, right? We cook beans, we cook
2 pounds
grains.
of raw potatoes.
Yeah, we cook potatoes, we shell cashews. So that way we're removing some of these indigestible parts. We
Mhm.
know how to properly process food. So that way, when you cook things, most of the lectins and the salicylates and the oxalates are actually transformed and they're broken down and they're now digestible. And guess what? We have specific bacteria in our guts and microbes in our guts
Mhm.
that are meant to help us break down oxalates and lectins and salicylates and histamines
Which you can
and some of these
lose.
natural portions. Yes. So then it's asking, what can my gut do for the food, not how can I cut out the food in order to accommodate my fractured gut, right? It's kind of like we're, all hearing more about family systems and you're hearing more people say, don't don't cater to the most toxic person in your family during the holidays, right? It's the same. Don't
Yeah.
cater to the most toxic bugs in your gut and every tiptoe your food habits and your lifestyle habits and your sleep habits and everything around these, inflammatory bugs in your gut. No, create boundaries with them. Learn, are they overgrown? Are they over their boundary? Let's try to keep them in balance so that way we're not dealing with some of these other problems and some of
Mhm.
these other difficulties.
Okay, but and then while I'm doing this, but
Okay.
it's so hard. Like it's not, I'm not seeing the
The ROI.
the ROI. I'm not seeing what I want to see. It's been 3 weeks, or maybe it's been 3 months.
Hmm.
Like what the heck? Like what's going on?
Yeah, it can even be 3 years.
3 years could even be 3 years. So this journey. Well, what I'll say to that, even though I'm posing this question, so to speak, or things that we hear, but it's like it's we always say, how long did it take you to get sick, right? And it's
Mm,
understanding like and many of us maybe had those transgenerational factors where it's
mhm.
like you have an autoimmune disease because unfortunately your mother or your grandmother, great grandmother were exposed maybe to a chemical, were so unhealthy. Like there's so many factors going into that. And it's important to factor that in where, yeah, you might be a little worse off than your friend or your neighbor, your
Or
cousin.
maybe you have a genetic mutation you inherited, and
Totally.
maybe that makes it difficult for you to absorb B vitamins, which are important for motility and decreasing inflammation. Or maybe you have a vitamin D receptor mutation and you have a higher amount of inflammation because of it, because maybe you're not correcting that appropriately. So yeah, I completely agree. Some people have a more involved and large onion.
Yeah.
And I can say that from experience. I had gut issues for decades, literal decades.
Yeah.
So I couldn't expect that my gut journey was going to be a few months. Unreasonable, right?
Yeah.
I had so many factors that impacted my gut health. It took me years to get to a place where I am today, where I'm like, more often than not, I feel amazing. My gut flare days are few and far in between. And I really know that it's when we go out to eat 5 times in a single week, which is very rare, right? But it happens. I know something like that will set off my gut. Or I know we traveled and I'm dehydrated and we keep going out to eat. Like something like that is going to set off my gut, but no longer.
I'm stressing Dahlia out.
Yeah.
And that's causing a flare.
But it's not like it used to be, right? When James met me 15 years ago,
really bad.
He brought to my attention that after every single meal, I would say I had a stomach ache.
I was like, are you okay?
Yeah. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I guess not.
Which speaks to that earlier point of like, you may not even know what's normal, right?
That was my norm.
That was her normal, is to be
I honestly asked him before, and I was already a dietitian. I wasn't a gut health dietitian, but I was a dietitian. And I was like, do you have like formed stool? Because I never
That's when our relationship got very comfortable.
Yeah, I really was like, my stool is never formed. I haven't had formed stool for like a decade.
And I was like, what?
Yes. And it just was abnormal to me. So my journey was not going to be a short one, right? I needed to peel back multiple layers to my proverbial gut onion, because so many courses of antibiotics had transpired. So much stress had transpired, elimination diets and overindulgence and inflammation and autoimmune. Like there was so much to my gut onion. So I'm a living example of that.
I don't know if I've ever told you this, but at the time it was a mixture. And I don't know if I've ever said this to you, but like it was a mixture of like excitement and also dread of like, I was realizing, oh my gosh, we have like, we were new or we were learning MNT. I don't know. There's a point I realized like, oh my gosh, this person I love is sick and we have to figure it out. Like this is our first patient right here. And it was like, whoa, it was actually putting what we're learning to the test, right? And going like, oh my gosh, someone I really love is sick. And I felt this massive passion. This is where it really just, and there was a layer of excitement. The nerd in me was like PubMed and like, oh, and she knows anything that would happen to her. I'm on PubMed and like looking it up, and we're really trying to figure this out. And that's why we're here today. But it's like, it's like, wow, it was exciting in some ways, but it's also, you feel that dread of like, man, someone I love is sick and we don't really know what to do. There's not really a protocol yet out there for this, at least at that time. Or at the time, again, we talk about the low residue diet, which is like eliminate fiber and blah, blah, which is like, that doesn't seem right.
Or it was, we've been plant-based for a long time, like 13 years. And
I don't know, 14.
It was, wait, everyone's saying that plant-based is so amazing and it's healing and you can reverse all these conditions like cardiometabolic disease and diabetes. Like, why are my gut issues reversing by eating plant-based? So I thought I must be doing something wrong.
Right.
I'm on this, somewhat elimination diet, but I'm still not tolerating soy and almonds and so many things that I was trying to eat at the time. I just wasn't tolerating. So I've lived it. And that's why I'm so passionate about gut health. I am someone who has been diagnosed with IBS, who very likely had SIBO before practitioners were testing people readily for SIBO. I have an autoimmune disease. Like I've lived it. And that's why we're so passionate about it. But again, my own onion, it was a big, robust onion. And it took me years and many different pathways to really be able to heal my onion.
Mm-hmm.
And so different layers can be involved. Like some patients ask, why isn't it just one course of rifaximin and neomycin that healed me, or herbs, or whatever it is? And sometimes there's other things involved, like biofilm. We'll put a warning on this next slide. We're going
Yeah,
to
you guys
screen
want to see a
share.
colon?
This is an actual colon, and there are bits of
You've been warned.
stool and other biological
And
things
for
in here.
those just listening, you're welcome. Being integrative gut health registered dietitians for over a decade, we really wanted something. We wanted to formulate something that we didn't have when Dahlia was going through IBS and SIBO symptoms, gas, bloating, constipation, diarrhea, hunched over after every meal. That's why we formulated Gut Nurture. It was a mix of ingredients that we wish we had to pull from all kinds of different supplements in order to make a supplement that actually worked, that helped with motility, that helped lay the foundation to build a healthy gut microbiome. It's safe for kids, it's safe for women, men, it's safe if you have IBS, if you're low FODMAP, low histamine, low sulfur, the list goes on and on. We really made it a ubiquitous, amazing supplement to help your gut thrive, and it is something we wish we had over a decade ago that you have now. Try Gut Nurture, let us know what you think, and be one of the thousands and thousands using Gut Nurture to stay healthy daily.
So this is something I really like talking about with my patients. If they've had a colonoscopy done, I always ask for them to send me the images, because you see here in the bottom left, that pink colon under that kind of after picture. That is what a colon, a healthy colon, is supposed to look like. You should be able to see the microvilli. You should be able to see that beautiful, healthy pink tissue. This here on the top left, where it says before, you see that it's very gooey looking, it's orangey red. If you're seeing that on your colonoscopy images, that very likely is biofilm. And biofilm is this thick matrix of what's called polysaccharide. So it has a combination of different types of carbohydrates. There are proteins in there, there are fats, there are also vitamins and minerals like iron. We have seen in data that things like calcium and vitamin D are incorporated into this biofilm, this lipopolysaccharide matrix. And it's kind of this protective coating that these opportunistic bugs create around themselves, because you might have been a really comfortable home for them and their family for generations, for like 10 years.
They don't
They
wanna
don't
leave.
want to leave. So sometimes even doing things like a colonoscopy
They
prep.
built a duplex.
Exactly. And if you've had a colonoscopy prep, you think there's nothing left, right? I pooped until my poop was clear water. There's nothing left in there. This embeds itself into your actual mucosal barrier. So that mucus layer that James showed in an earlier slide, although it was a cartoon, studies show this builds itself and adheres itself into your mucosal barrier. So doing a colonoscopy prep or an elimination diet isn't really going to get rid of that biofilm that we see there. Because again, look, it's there. It's a mucosal invasion. And what it's doing is it's encapsulating a colony and a group of opportunistic bugs and kind of entrapping it there. So again, the bugs themselves are making these things, or sometimes it's your own appendix that's making the biofilm as well. Studies do show that the appendix is not a useless appendage like some people claim, right? A lot of people claim, oh, if you have to have your appendix removed, it's fine. It's not, you don't need it.
No big deal.
You can live without it. Yes, you can live without it. You won't die like you would die without another organ like your lungs or your heart or your brain.
What a low bar, though, to live by.
But will you thrive? You'll be alive, but will you thrive? Because the appendix also, think of it as like your Spider-Man in your body. Your appendix is shooting off these biofilms as well to say, hey, that little colony of bugs right there is looking a little sketchy. Let me wall them off so at least they're not interacting inside the lumen, inside the insides of the gut, and causing a lot of damage. So sometimes it's your own body protecting itself. Again, your appendix kind of Spider-Manning and saying, hey, I'm going to wall some of this off behind some biofilm, or it's the bugs themselves that are like, hey, let me grab some of the nutrients that this person's eating or intaking, and I'm going to create this nice little colony around myself. And if your gastroenterologist is well versed in this and knows what this is, when they see it, they can jet wash this out. So they can take a strong current of water. That's not going to damage that delicate layer of your gut, but they can actually wash this off.
For those just listening, we're looking at like a gooey red kind of
So where it says
colonic
before,
wall.
so the ileum is
Yeah.
the last part of the small intestine. The cecum is the first part of the large intestine. Studies show this is the most common place you're going to find biofilm. So if you've ever had a colonoscopy, go into your portal, find your pictures, and see if your colon or the end of your small intestine, which most of the time they go into the ileum, they go into the end of the small intestine during colonoscopy. See if it looks like this, if it's red, orange, gooey.
We should do at marriedsouth.com a colon picture
I would love
contest.
that. I would love that. I like looking at this stuff. But see if it looks like that. You're likely the person who's going to need more than one course of whatever. You have a thicker onion of layers to peel back. So maybe you need more biofilm disruptors. Maybe you need a few rounds of herbs or antibiotics or antifungals. You need binders. You need something that's going to get rid of this because it doesn't want to leave on its own. It's dug its claws in and it doesn't want to leave you.
If only there was something you could eat every day that actually promotes a balance of these biofilms. What would that be? Oh, yeah, it's plants. And there are studies to show that plants can actually help. One thing, I mean, they're creating postbiotics, but these postbiotics will actually help to balance these biofilms. These postbiotics actually help to balance these communities of unwanted microbes by helping to target your immune system to wipe them out. And this is a daily occurrence when you're going all out.
I'm going to show people.
We're,
I
we're
love
showing
this
a
stuff.
video of it now
So
too.
if you don't want to have this done and you don't want to have this build up, yes, the plants themselves contain enzymes, right? We know pineapple contains great enzymes. We know papaya, we know kiwi or bananas or honey. Certain plants, probiotic foods, fermented foods, they contain enzymes that can naturally break down this biofilm. So if you're like, I want my small and large intestine to look beautiful and pink like that, I don't want to have this biofilm washed out by somebody. Eat your plants because they're going to do that for you. Or there are plant extracts that can do that for you. So if you're like, I don't know if everything is going well, get your imaging into the hands of someone who can detect it. Do the things that are needed to help reverse some of these different things. And somebody's asking, what about prebiotics? That helped me. Food for the good bacteria.
Yep.
Yes. So
it's plants.
that's plants.
So one thing is that I know there's specific, like if you were to Google prebiotic food, a certain list always comes up, right? Like artichoke and Jerusalem artichoke and apples and certain things are prebiotic food. Those are just the most studied prebiotics, but really at the end of the day, all plant foods are prebiotics. Anything with plant fiber, with that beautiful hard plant cell wall that is not going to be easily digested, it doesn't melt in your mouth, it's going to move throughout your GI tract, is a prebiotic. So any plants you're eating
is
prebiotic.
Sometimes they melt in your mouth, right? Starch.
Oh yes, yeah, right.
You have things like resistant starch, and they're called that because they resist getting digested and absorbed in your small intestine, where most things are digested and absorbed, and they go into your colon and they feed your good bugs. So yes, eat those plants. And I love this other comment.
Yeah.
Your health is like training for a marathon. It will take time. I've only been vegan for 4 years and I feel amazing, but I'm also still learning lots. Yeah, absolutely.
Totally.
And so again, if you're like me and you're like, I've been vegan, but I still don't feel well, you may need a trainer, right? Because you can go to the gym or you can go on runs by yourself. But if you keep getting injured, you might need somebody to help you work on some of those underlying things. Maybe it's a postural issue, or maybe there's an injury that never fully healed. You might need a running coach to help you improve your time. So that's what a dietitian is, right? They are a nutrition coach to help you pace yourself and heal with each meal.
If I can give you a story on that, an example, I loved running. And when I was younger, I would heel run. And I didn't know the proper running technique. And it wasn't until I started getting older, like, oh, my knees hurt. And like, oh no, I can't run. And I've had knee surgery before.
Tight glutes.
I would be very, very tight. And as soon as I got some advice on it and started learning more about it, I was like, oh, I'm running on my heel, which is not the way you should run. You want to run on your tippy toes and have your feet and your calf muscle and the rest of the muscles of your leg absorb that shock, right? And so it's amazing. Running's great, but running incorrectly can hurt you. Eating's great. Plants are great, but eating incorrectly can hurt you, right? Eating without the context of knowing what's going on in your gut and understanding what's going on in your gut can hurt you and cause you money, time, and so much more, and pain that you can avoid. So super important. And I would probably say, I mean, last thing too is, or one of the last things, depending, I mean, it's like, okay, great, I understand this, but I don't have thousands upon thousands of dollars to spend on a program. And we see that a lot too, where patients come to, I spent thousands trying to, I saw this functional medicine doctor and he said he'll help me with my gut problems, whether it's SIBO or IBS and all of this stuff. Like, okay, what do I do? And I mean, what do they do?
So that's where we've created our program. So that way somebody can learn these intricacies of their gut health, go at it at their pace, learn about testing, most of it that they can order through our program, or which supplements they can order, which medications they can ask their care team about if it's appropriate for them. So if you right now aren't in a place time wise, financially to work with somebody one on one, including us, we do have a program. Or there are many practices, like ours is a network with insurance payers. So if you have PPO, you might qualify for nutrition care benefits. It's the end of the year. If you haven't used all the funds in your HSA or your
Depending when you're listening to
FSA,
this.
you might tap into that and get to work in these next couple of weeks. So
Yeah.
there are options out there. Are you
Yes.
exploring them? And how are you feeling with each meal and healing with each meal? And do you need some help with that? And there's no shame in that. It can be really empowering. And then you can empower yourself and empower others.
Yes. So, guys, so yeah, overall, it doesn't cost an arm and leg to do this. I mean, you can do this, save yourself time, save yourself the stress of continuing to live with GI issues and GI problems. We're really excited. If you're listening to this live or later on the Good Gut Live podcast, make sure you're connecting with us at marytalk.com. We're going to do an in-person event in 2025. So we're very excited about that. Not only is it an in-person event, it's on a regenerative farm where we're getting into the details of gut health as it connects to soil health, microbial health, the food you're eating, plant-based eating, gluten-free, regenerative eating, fermenting foods, growing foods, healthy families, zero waste lifestyle. Like we're getting into all of these really cool avenues from experts who are not only working in it, but experts in it and really
providing resources to others wanting to do the
of
same.
how to do it. So we wanted to create something in person where it's not just like, hey, come to this hotel in this air-conditioned room and hear people speak. It is,
and then you have information overload that you walk away with.
and then you're like, what now? No, it is, okay, you're going to have an experience and learn the
outside
how
in nature,
to.
forest bathing or nature
Yes,
bathing,
nature bath. For
farm
sure.
bathing.
Farm bathing. I like it. That's the newest thing. Dahlia created it. So we're very excited. So make sure you connect to marytalk.com to learn more about everything we're talking about one-on-one, about programs, about in-person events we have coming up. You can find it all at marytalk.com. So hopefully if you're someone who's like, someone keeps telling me, yeah, plants are terrible, send them this podcast, send them this video, tag them down below. Let us know in the comments down below what you want to hear about next, what's something you're maybe hearing about from friends, family, or just people online. Make sure you like, subscribe, and follow. Leave us a review, all that good stuff, and we appreciate it so much. So
yes,
as always, have a wonderful rest of your weekend,
this
week.
is probably one of our last lives of the year.
Well, depending when you're listening, but yeah, we're
Yeah.
coming up on. Well, this is part of season 2 of Good Gut Live. If you're listening live, yeah, we're recording this towards the end of the year, so we're excited. We're excited to move into 2025. And for those listening, maybe you're listening to this later and you're already into 2025, but it's just begun. So we're really excited. It's going to be a great year.
We hope that this year brings you immense gut healing. You get out of your gut debt. You become a gut billionaire, and you start to feel
Gut
absolutely
billionaire. Who needs
incredible.
crypto billionaire? You need to be a gut billionaire.
I'd honestly take it over
Oh
$1
my
billion.
gosh.
Again,
For
being somebody
sure.
who had immense gut debt, all the money in the world can't make you feel good. So
Yes.
join me on the other side of your gut issues. And if
Yes.
you need help getting there, I'm happy to be a guide. We have dietitians ready. We have free resources on our website if you're just wanting to read blogs or download our free ebook. So check out our ecosystem at Married to Health. But we hope that this just empowers you, helps you really know eliminate dieting out of your symptoms is not kind of long-term solution. You do want somebody on your team who can help you understand how you got in debt, help you really see and lay out all of your debt, help you get out of it, and just help you thrive and grow and live in abundance.
All right, everybody. Until next time, thank you so much.
Here with each meal.
And feel with each meal. Bye,
All
everybody.
right. Bye.